let's start the show.
Let's see. 1 bottle wasted youth, a dash of mediocrity, a splash of desperation, and a whole lot of weeb. That should be enough to summon Matt. Now, just gotta say the magic words. Guess who's not revamped this video?
Where am I?
My place, which for all intents and purposes looks like your place, since we don't have the budget.
Fair. So, what's going on?
You're starting off the review. You wrote the script, remember?
You're not supposed to break the fourth wall. Anyway, I remember many months ago watching YouTube videos, as I'm known to do, when Autoplay decided to queue up a video review of Hi-Fi Rush. Upon watching maybe 2 minutes of the video, I promptly closed it. This was not because the video sucked, but because I knew I was going to review it and didn't want their words and opinions to influence my own as a result.
Huh. It almost sounds like you're trying to be a real journalist.
Right? I swear, the next video, I'm going to half-ass it just to balance things out. So without further ado, from me to you, here's our review of Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush is a 2023 rhythm-based action game from Tango Gameworks. At the time, they were owned by Minnmax. And then, all hell broke loose.
We will cover all of this later on in the video, trust me. There's going to be a rant, we've got a soapbox and everything.
Hi-Fi Rush was directed by John Johannes and produced by Masato Kimura and Shinsaku Ohara. Hi-Fi Rush tells the story of Chai, a 25-year-old... wait, Chai is 25?
Yeah, somewhat surprising, but it does make sense.
Chai decides to join Vandelay Technologies' limb replacement program, Project Armstrong. His goal is to use his new robot arm to become a rock star. If you think he's a little vain, don't worry, he's still an ass.
Boy, is he ever. It's not explained how Chai originally injured his arm, however, I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to do it himself in order to get into Project Armstrong.
Chai's dreams unfortunately take a backseat when his music player becomes embedded into his chest during his arm surgery. Before Chai can lure up though, he's deemed a defect and is set to be destroyed by Vandelay.
Now on the run and trying to find a way out, Chai will have to put together a crew of unlikely comrades, from the level-headed Peppermint, the peaceful brute Macaron, the oddball therapist robot Cinnamon, and one more that you'll meet later on in the future.
Not gonna mention her?
And deprive them of the surprise? Nah. Keep going with the gameplay.
Hi-Fi Rush is a third-person rhythm-based action game where you'll have to attack, dodge, and...
Say the line! Say it!
And parry opponents who are synced up to the beat of the background music.
While you can attack off time, players will be rewarded if they also time their attacks to the beats per minute of the song, and let me just say, I love everything about this system. I played third-person action games like Devil May Cry, God of War, Onimusha, etc, etc. I can finally say that I have an action game that I locked in and genuinely didn't want to let go. At first, there's a bit of a learning curve to some of the tracks, but as you gain familiarity, you'll do better and better.
Says the actual musician, I couldn't parry to save my life. This is made even worse by the fact that parrying is pretty much forced on you. At one point, you have a boss fight that is nothing but parrying. I died. A lot.
Wow, that sounds awful.
A lot!
Okay, the only thing I can see as being an issue is having too many enemies on screen and being screwed over by a bad camera angle.
I didn't have a problem with that.
Really? I am somewhat surprised. For me, I didn't have many issues, but a lot of the combo moves required practice. Luckily, the game will let you use the practice mode to work on your combos, team-up moves, and even parries. As the game progressed, new features were implemented, and they didn't feel overly challenging so long as you adapted to the background music. Granted, on my first playthrough, I also died and got low scores a fair bit.
I found that I would dodge enemies instead of using parries. After beating the game, I decided to lower the difficulty to easy mode, and it was a lot more forgiving. That being said, I did enjoy the magnetic hook that you can use to get enemies instead of trying to chase them down. If you press the select button on your controller, a small metronome will appear. This is great for people who have an issue keeping time with the chaos of combat. If you're having a hard time remembering combos or facing a certain enemy, you can access a training room in your hideout in order to practice. Also, if you're ever confused on where to go, Hi-Fi Rush's level design has a simple yet smart solution of putting directional signs around the factories, buildings, and underground scenery.
During my initial playthrough, I didn't stumble into any gameplay-breaking bugs or glitches. However, I played the game recently in February 2025. My DualShock 4 controller wouldn't properly function at key points. one of which is time sensitive and can result in a game over if you don't quickly quit and reload a quick save. When I discovered this bug, I ran out to EB Games, aka GameStop, and purchased an Xbox controller, specifically because I was hoping it would correct this problem. Unfortunately, it didn't, and now in order to work around this bug, I need to switch from controller to mouse and keyboard and press my left Alt button in order to fix it. This isn't something I can just report to Tango Gameworks because... You'll find out later on in the review.
Are you okay? You seem tense.
Oh, I am not okay. But we're gonna keep moving though. Let's talk about the graphics and art style.
Hi-Fi Rush uses straightforward cel-shaded graphics that most anime-style games are known for. What sets it apart is its bright and vibrant uses of color. Everything from character clothing choices, menu overlays, attacks and level designs feel like something out of a comic book.
It quite honestly reminds me of when I used to do photography and let the color saturation bleed intentionally to make the color pop. Hell, even the enemies are brightly colored so that players can summon the right allies to use in the fight. That being said, I didn't like the animated cutscenes that weren't using the in-game engine. The animation style changes so significantly, it feels inferior compared to the borderline perfection of the game. Let me know if you disagree in the comments below, because I'd really love to know your opinion. Anyway, let's move on to the voice acting.
The voice acting of Hi-Fi Rush is genuinely great. Whether or not you choose Japanese audio or English, both are really solid. Frankly, I enjoyed them both equally. On the Japanese dub, we have Hiroshi Mono playing Chai, Toa Yukinari as Peppermint, Yasuhiro Mamiya as Macaron, and Hiroyuki Yoshino as Cinnamon. There's way more people in the cast and crew who did a great job, but for me, my favorite was Takehito Koyasu as the main antagonist, Kale. He's basically a veteran voice actor that's been everywhere since the 1980s. Perfect casting for him.
I also played the game in both English and Japanese, but I preferred the English dubbing. Not because I know the language, but because of the interesting choices the English cast used. Gabe Kunda as Macaron having a slight British tilt in his delivery, Sarah Almale making Corsica Scottish, and Sunil Malhotra doing Cinnamon with a slightly Indian flourish. It's genuinely really cool world building, making it so that it feels like this is a multiracial and multicultural future. Also, oddly, I mentioned John Johannes as the game director. He also voiced Smidge and some minor characters.
Damn, that's actually pretty cool.
Just like Harriet said, there is a huge cast of characters that went into this game, and unfortunately, I can't list them all, but they did an amazing job. The two I do want to focus on though are Erica Lindbeck as Peppermint and Robbie Damon as Chai. They were both perfectly cast. However, I do need to let the viewers of this review know that I am biased.
What are you talking about?
At Pretty Heroes 2022, I was the moderator for the voice acting panel, which had Robbie Damon in attendance. I think I also was a guest liaison that year. Long story short, I have a massive poster that he autographed in my room and made it out to my group of aspiring voice actors.
I'm actually staring at it right now.
Colloquialism.
Did he say anything about Hi-Fi Rush?
It was 2022. I didn't know anything about Hi-Fi Rush at the time. For all I know, Chai could have been based off of me. Doesn't really matter though. Let's talk about the music.
Aw, hell no. Not touching that.
Huh? Why? What's wrong?
Nothing, but you're the musician. It makes more sense to give you the floor. Also, I want to see you fail at pronouncing Japanese names.
Fair point. Also, I hate you. Hi-Fi Rush's soundtrack needed to be just as important as its game mechanics, and luckily it pulled it off. Obviously, rock is going to be center stage. However, there's enough variation to prevent things from getting stale. You'll be bobbing your head along to drum-heavy sections in R&D, rocking out in QA, enjoying the synth sections of the security department, fighting tough jazz rhythm sections of the main stage, to the intense breakdowns of Vandalay HQ. Obviously, Hi-Fi Rush's music has to be implemented with precision. Much like making an album, songs in the various levels need to flow together, otherwise everything could become disjointed. This is made harder when you consider that the main soundtrack is a collaboration of composers working together to make Hi-Fi Rush. Shuichi Kobori, Ario, The Glass Pyramids, and Masatoshi Yanagi worked together on the original soundtrack. They should be given a round of applause. However, I do need to point out, all the instrumentals are well done, but the lyrics for I Got This by Shuichi Kobori felt like a rough draft. I want to hammer this home. This is the only non-licensed song that features lyrics during a normal playthrough. I don't know if they were rushed for time, but as a lyricist myself, this song lacks lyrical depth. The melody is solid, but it fails to leave a strong impact as verses and choruses fail to connect. Also, the vocals are mixed quieter, which makes it take a back seat to other instruments. Frankly, I wonder if it should have been an instrumental instead. The licensed music used in the game is masterfully implemented. Almost all the licensed songs greatly elevate the sections they were included in. I'm not going to spoil any of the songs for you just because you really need to experience them for yourselves. Hi-Fi Rush had me on board 100% during the first boss fight and never let me go. The only time they dropped the ball, in my opinion, is the second boss fight against Rekka, who is the head of production. Most of the gameplay is fast-paced with hard-hitting music to complement it. Rekka's fight, however, is much slower and methodically paced to the point it feels out of place. Her fight song, Free Radicals by the Flaming Lips, is a really odd choice that doesn't belong when compared to the rest of the game. The strength of the soundtrack is one of Hi-Fi Rush's secret weapons. Outside of the game, I would listen to some of these tracks offline only to find my performance would greatly improve when I jump back into it. I wasn't doing that to get better though. I just genuinely liked the music and wanted to hear more of the tracks, with Through the Halls of History and Reflection happening to be my personal favorites.
You know I'm still part of the review, right?
You told me to do the music portion! I'm a musician, of course I have a lot to say!
Let me see your next portion then!
Did you play the game with streamer mode on?
What? No? Why? What happens when you put that on?
A really shitty imitation of the licensed track plays in the background.
Why?
The boss fights are 100% based around the licensed tracks. If you can't use those, then you'll have to put in something that has a similar emotion and beats per minute of the original. Basically, players wanted music, but streamer mode gives you the shitty music version of it.
That's kinda harsh, don't you think?
It took me basically 3 hours to defeat Kale on streamer mode. Next time I faced him with the actual licensed song, I locked in like I was Neo at the end of the first Matrix movie. It didn't even feel like the same fight. He was about as dead as my parents' marriage.
Speaking of a messy divorce.
Seamless transition, Harriet.
Of course. It's me after all. We're going to have to lay out the insanity of Bethesda and the Microsoft acquisition of Tango Gameworks. We'll try our best to summarize it. However, we've been holding back on this one for a while. I'll briefly explain what happened, and Matt will probably launch into an editorial rant. Again.
You set him up, and I'll knock him down.
Tango Gameworks was originally under the wing of Shinji Mikami. He basically wanted to leave Capcom and work on something else besides Resident Evil. In 2010, Tango was founded, but they ran into financial troubles. Minnmax, the parent company of Bethesda, stepped in and purchased the company. Under this period, Tango released The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2. While the games didn't receive a major positive reception, they still had a niche following.
I was won over by The Evil Within 2. The story greatly made up for the occasionally clunky controls. For me, Tango Gameworks felt like scrappy underdogs releasing these odd but incredibly endearing games.
In 2021, Minnmax was bought by Microsoft, and as a result, Tango Gameworks followed suit. In 2022, Tango released Ghostwire Tokyo and then Hi-Fi Rush in 2023. While Ghostwire Tokyo was met with mixed reviews, Hi-Fi Rush was met with incredible praise, spreading through word of mouth internally at Bethesda and then promptly shadow dropped onto PC and Xbox Marketplace.
Apparently, the decision to shadow drop was planned. According to IGN, director John Johannes said that the shadow drop decision came from the game's marketing team, in part because of uncertainty about how a longer marketing cycle might play out. The problem with this story is that John Johannes slightly changed it. In an interview with Ben Hansen of Minnmax, he stated that the idea actually came from the marketing team at Bethesda. Originally, the plan was Hi-Fi Rush was supposed to be teased during the COVID-19 pandemic, but the marketing deadline kept getting pushed back. I don't know if that's actually true, guys. In my honest opinion, it genuinely felt like Hi-Fi Rush was put out intentionally to fail, but luckily, it went viral.
Despite the fact that Hi-Fi Rush walked away with a 2024 BAFTA Award for Best Animation and a 2023 Game Award for Best Audio Design, Tango Gameworks was closed down by Microsoft. This was a result of Microsoft spending $7.5 billion to acquire Minnmax. With pressure from shareholders breathing down their necks, Microsoft basically snuffed out Arkane Studios, makers of the Dishonored franchise, and Tango Gameworks.
Hey, Harriet, would you mind if I take it from here?
Rant time?
Rant time!
Cool, I'll go grab some bubble tea.
Cool. Wait, why are you grabbing my wallet?
'Cause you're paying, duh.
You invited me!
Okay, thanks, bye!
God damn it. Look, I'm going to just flat out say it here. What happened with Tango Gameworks is essentially nothing short of corporate malfeasance. Xbox spent $7.5 billion on acquiring ZeniMax and then promptly snuffed them out. This is basically the actions of a monopoly running rampant in an industry that desperately needs oversight. When you have these big mergers and acquisitions, you're kind of making it so that there won't be any competition that will challenge the status quo. With no change comes no innovation. With no innovation comes the same game by committee garbage that gives us endless Call of Duty hero shooter AAA disaster pieces with no thought outside of what monetization strategies could be implemented to extract maximum shareholder value. It's only when an out-of-nowhere smash like Balatro, Schedule 1, Undertale, Hades, etc. rolls around will they get any kind of pushback. The thing that makes this story aggravating to me is the day after Tango Gameworks' closure, Xbox Game Studios had a town hall. Matt Booty, who is the head of Xbox Game Studios, was quoted as saying, "We need smaller games that give us prestige and awards." Tango Gameworks did that in spades and still suffered for it. If you'll allow me to be hyperbolic, I think the only solution is getting all the executives involved to line up against the wall and get the beat out of them with bricks till they piss blood. If the systems in place won't hold companies accountable, then the people being taken advantage of should. Seven Samurai style.
Hey, I'm back! Here's your debit card. You finished kickstarting a socialist revolution yet?
Not yet, comrade.
In closing, developers probably should have a union. Okay, I'm done. I need to take a breather. Let me sip some bubble tea and let you talk for a while.
When you've beaten Hi-Fi Rush's story, the game isn't done. As you make your way through the levels, you'll come across pathways that cannot be opened until you've beaten the game. Upon making your way back to those places, you'll find upgrades and collectibles that can help with getting S ranks. Not only can you replay those levels, but you unlock an arcade with 2 unique games. Power Up Tower Up is a gauntlet run where you face off against multiple foes. When you begin the mode, you'll be extremely underpowered. However, as you start clearing floors, you'll be given upgrades and challenges which can make the journey easier in the long run. For example, your light attack gets a permanent upgrade, but the floor you're on has more aggressive enemies. If you want to win Tower Up Power Up, you're going to need skill and some good old-fashioned luck to survive. BPM Rush is, as you guessed it, a tough fight where you have to clear enemies who are set to incredibly fast times. I didn't play it, but apparently Matt really enjoyed it. If you end up beating both arcade games 100%, you'll unlock the developer's room. Basically, it's posing under the fake Vandalay Gameworks, but really it's everyone at Tango Gameworks saying thank you for playing Hi-Fi Rush and talking about what it was like working on the game. When you're wandering around the hideout, you have access to the jukebox where you can play songs from the OST. On the back wall is a mural which will fill in as you make progress in the game. In order to unlock everything, you'll need to replay the main game a minimum of 5 times, assuming you get S rank on each level. Unfortunately, you can't bypass this by tackling the hardest difficulty and assuming everything will unlock. You'll have to go through it one at a time, which is a shame because I personally have only played the game once. Hi-Fi Rush is great, but I don't want to replay it. I beat the game on normal mode and thoroughly enjoyed the experience.
Hey Harriet, mind if I tag in? I want to briefly add something before we wrap up.
Sure, just don't take as long as the previous rant.
I'll be quick. One of the overwhelming thoughts that nagged me throughout my original playthrough of Hi-Fi Rush was how the game, forgive the pun, felt rushed. On level 7, The Climb, the mission ends with a pretty interesting enemy showing up in the final cutscene. If you happen to chat with Cinnamon in the hideout, he'll straight up mention how the enemy was intended to be a boss fight that was scrapped, and that they feel sorry for the designer who worked on it. Whereas level 7 had no ending, level 10 had no beginning. If you play it, you'll get a voiceover and a few still images explaining what's going on before immediately dropping you down into the level. The cast basically makes a few quips about the situation before Chai breaks the fourth wall and says, "Now let's never mention this again." All I can say is ouch. It's quite clear that concessions were made in order to finish Hi-Fi Rush. At this precise moment in time, I have no idea what the budget for Hi-Fi Rush was. I have checked the internet, I have tried to reach out to the public, and I have even attempted to connect with game director John Johannes. And I know you might be thinking, Matt, why are you trying to find out that financial information? Why am I trying to find out that financial information? Tango Gameworks is once again owned by ZeniMax before Microsoft bought them. At the same time as Tango Gameworks was working on Hi-Fi Rush, Bethesda, who once again is also owned by ZeniMax, was working on Starfield. In a LinkedIn post by David Reitman, he mentioned how the budget for Starfield was above $200 million. This is probably not including a marketing budget. At the time of Starfield's release, you couldn't walk into a grocery store without seeing a promotion for it on bags of Doritos or cans of Rockstar Energy. Meanwhile, Hi-Fi Rush got nothing and was shadow dropped. For legal reasons, I can't accuse ZeniMax of diverting money that should have gone to Tango Gameworks to Bethesda. My personal opinion, seems like there's something going on. It doesn't feel right. Either way, it's a shame because the game could have been so much better with more time and money to smooth out the gaping imperfections.
Once again, I thought you said you were going to be quick.
I'm sorry, I've been through a lot. I'm tired, and moody, and just didn't want to feel this way.
Aw, honey, baby. You know what I do when life gets me down?
What? How do you deal with depression?
Oh, I don't know. Have you tried reading BL?
You!
Hi-Fi Rush is a genuinely great game despite the imperfections. The main story is done in 8 to 12 hours, but it's well worth it. Even if you're not a fan of action games, it is generally worth a play.
The levels are linear, but sometimes it's refreshing to not play an open-world sandbox with needless padding to make you play for hundreds of hours.
The writing is genuinely funny, the music is great, and the visuals are primarily solid.
As a musician, Hi-Fi Rush actually improved my work in my band. I would finish playing the game for a few hours only to go into band practice and learn songs that I was having trouble getting the timing down.
Now, despite the fact that Tango Gameworks was gutted by Microsoft, it was recently bought by Krafton. They're the South Korean company who owns PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, aka PUBG.
At this moment in time, we have no idea if this version of Tango Gameworks is going to be the same as what we got beforehand. But you can be rest assured that we'll be there covering it.
Until then, I'm Harriet.
And I'm Comic Relief!
Oh god. See you next time!
This video was proudly supported by Unsung Heroes of Patreon. Hey everybody, Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD, saying thank you so much for catching my video review of Hi-Fi Rush. If you liked the video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and leave me a comment in the comments down below so that I may grow. If you look up here on this side of the webpage, it'll be whatever the algorithm recommends that you want to watch, and down here is going to be a collection of my previous videos. So if this is your first time seeing me, maybe you want to see more. But either way, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. My name is Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD. Arigato gozaimasu, and later days.